I've always been a light sleeper. So when the voices started, I heard them immediately. It was around 2:30 a.m. I remember because I looked at my phone after I jolted awake. At first, I thought it was the neighbors arguing through the paper-thin apartment walls again. But these voices were closer. Much closer. They were in my bedroom. I sat up, heart thudding. The room was dark, except for the weak blue glow of the digital clock. And the voices, two of them, were whispering fast, like they were arguing but trying not to wake me. One was male, the other female. But no one else was supposed to be in my apartment. I reached for the lamp. The moment the light clicked on, the voices stopped. Silence. I stood, checked the closet, under the bed, even the hallway. Nothing. The door was locked from the inside, chain still on. Windows shut tight. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just sat in bed, staring at the door. The next day, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a dream. Sleep paralysis, maybe. A residual echo from the neighbors. I told myself anything to feel normal. But the next night, they came back. This time, I left the lights off. I wanted to hear them clearly. And I did. The whispers were just beside my bed. Again, one man, one woman. The man sounded agitated, the woman afraid. The words didn't make sense. Half sentences like, "She's not ready. Too soon. Too soon. We're wasting time." I opened my eyes, heart pounding. The room was pitch black, but I could feel their presence. That unmistakable sensation of being watched. My skin prickled all over. Then something new happened. A third voice spoke. It was faint, far away, like it was trying to speak through static. But it sounded like me. "Stop talking about me," it said. "I can't hear you." I didn't say those words. I didn't move my mouth. But I heard them, in my own voice, and so did the other two. Because they stopped. And then everything went silent. I turned the light on. Again, no one was there. I called my sister the next morning. She's always been the practical one. "Are you taking anything?" she asked. "Melatonin? Ambien?" "Nothing." "Are you sure it wasn't a dream?" "I'm sure." "Okay," she said slowly. "I'll come stay a few nights, if that'll help." It did help. Sort of. Because when she was there, the voices didn't come. But the third night, just before dawn, she shook me awake. "I heard it," she whispered. My stomach dropped. "The voices?" She nodded, eyes wide. "Two people. Right over your bed. I thought you were on the phone until I realized your lips weren't moving. Then I heard it again, your voice, but it wasn't you. It said something like, 'You're not supposed to be here.'" We packed her things, and she left before sunrise. After that, I started recording myself while I slept. The first 3 nights, the audio was normal, occasional shifting, breathing, maybe a creak from the building. But on the 4th night, I heard it. At 2:33 a.m., there was a rustle, and then, "She's getting stronger." "Not yet. We wait." Then my voice, "I don't want to be here." It wasn't a dream. I wasn't even awake. I was dead asleep. But my voice was on the tape. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I called a sleep specialist. Booked the soonest available appointment, a week out. Meanwhile, I kept recording. Each night, the voices got clearer. And the third voice, my voice, got more defiant. "You don't control me. Leave me alone. Stop whispering. I can hear you." But I was asleep the entire time. Or so I thought. Because on the 7th night, I woke up standing. Right in the middle of my bedroom, facing the mirror. My reflection was staring back, but my mouth was still moving. And the voice that came out, it wasn't mine. My mouth moved, but I wasn't saying the words. I stood frozen in front of the mirror, watching as my reflection, no, something wearing my face, whispered in a voice I didn't recognize. A voice too low, too flat. It didn't blink, didn't breathe. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and as I did, the reflection smiled. Then the lights flickered and I blacked out. I woke up in bed, drenched in sweat. The sun was already rising. I jumped up and ran to the mirror. My face was my own again. Blank. Tired. Eyes bloodshot. I played the night's audio. At 2:31 a.m., the voices returned, clearer than ever. "She's close. She's resisting." Then silence. But around 2:45 a.m., I heard something else, movement, shuffling. Then my voice, whispering. "They're in the mirror now." My blood ran cold. That same day, I took the mirror down, dragged it out to the dumpster behind the building. I didn't even want to touch it. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But that night, something changed. The voices didn't come from beside the bed anymore. They came from inside the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster, and it was like listening to a conversation through drywall. Muted, urgent, constant. She's removed the channel. Then we find another. I sat up all night, lights on, eyes wide. Every creak in the building sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind like breath behind my ear. The next morning, I went to work like a zombie. A coworker asked if I was sick. I lied and said I had the flu. No one pressed me. I considered moving out, breaking the lease. But I had nowhere to go. No family nearby, and barely enough money for groceries, let alone a hotel. That night, I tried something desperate. I sat in the center of the bedroom with my phone recording and said aloud, "If you're going to keep doing this, then speak to me directly. Stop hiding." Nothing. But at exactly 3 a.m., my phone lit up. An incoming call. No number. Just unknown. I answered with shaking hands. For a few seconds, there was only static. Then my voice said, "Turn around." I dropped the phone. I didn't turn around. Not until the morning. The next day, the walls were quiet. The mirror was gone. The air felt still, like something was waiting. I took the day off and walked for hours. Parks, cafes, even the library. Anywhere but home. That night, I slept with all the lights on. Earplugs in. Recording still rolling. I couldn't handle another whisper. Another reflection. Another call. And for a while, it seemed to work. But at 3:17 a.m., I bolted upright in bed. There was someone in the room with me. Not a presence. Not a whisper. A person. I saw her silhouette first. A woman standing in the corner, facing the wall. My first instinct was to scream, but my throat locked up. I blinked hard, thinking maybe it was a coat rack or a trick of the shadows. But she turned her head slightly, and I saw her profile. It was me. Exactly me. She smiled without teeth. Then she whispered, "I'm not the third voice," and vanished. That broke me. The next day, I called my boss and said I needed time off. Mental health, stress leave, whatever excuse I could muster. He didn't ask many questions. I drove to a motel an hour out of the city and paid for a full week in cash. The room was old and smelled like bleach, but I didn't care. I unplugged the TV, taped the peephole shut, and blocked the bathroom mirror with a towel. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat much. I just sat, waiting to feel normal again. By day 4, I was starting to believe maybe I'd escaped it. That whatever it was, it needed the apartment to work. Then I found the note. It was on the bathroom mirror, written in condensation, like someone had taken a hot shower while I was asleep. "You're the fourth voice now. I never turned the water on. And I hadn't slept, which meant someone else had been there. And I was never alone. I left the motel before sunrise. Didn't pack. Didn't check out. Just ran. I drove for hours, switching highways, checking the rearview mirror so often I nearly crashed twice. I wasn't sure what I was running from, something inside me, something following me. I didn't care. I just needed a way. Eventually, I stopped in a small town off the interstate. Quiet. Dusty. Barely a dot on the map. I found a diner, sat in a corner booth, and tried to breathe. The waitress brought me coffee. Her eyes lingered on me a little too long. "You okay, hon?" she asked. I nodded. "Lied again." She hesitated, then leaned in. "I saw you come in," she whispered. "You were talking to someone, but there was no one next to you." My blood turned to ice. I hadn't said a word since leaving the motel. I found a second motel down the street. Paid in cash again. Refused the room with a mirror. The clerk didn't ask questions. That night, I didn't try to sleep. I placed my phone on the nightstand, recording once more, and stared at the blank wall. No whispers came. No shadows moved. But at 2:59 a.m., the power went out. Everything, the lights, the heat, the street lamps outside, gone. Total blackness. Then a knock at the door. 3 soft taps. I didn't move. Another knock. This time, faster. Urgent. I crept to the door, careful not to breathe. No peephole. No chain. Just a flimsy deadbolt. Then the voice came. It was my voice. "Let me in." I backed away. The voice came again. Softer. Pleading. "Please. I'm cold out here." I covered my ears and screamed. But the voice didn't stop. It spoke through the walls, through the floor, through my own thoughts. "You brought me here. You made me." Then silence. And the lights came back on. The next morning, I found scratches on the inside of the door. Long, narrow ones, like fingernails. But worse than that was what I saw in the mirror behind the TV, one I hadn't noticed the night before. I was asleep. Not in real time. Not a reflection. Just asleep. I was in the bed, under the covers. And I was breathing. I turned around. The bed was empty. When I looked back, the mirror was just a mirror again. I drove home. I didn't know what else to do. Maybe returning to the source would make it stop. Or maybe it was the only place where the rules made sense. When I stepped back into the apartment, it was like stepping into a forgotten dream. Dust had settled on every surface, but nothing had moved. The air felt still and cold. I didn't unpack. I didn't sit. I just stood in the middle of the living room, waiting. And the voices returned. Not whispers now. Not hidden. Clear. Loud. Everywhere. She's returned. She's ready. She belongs. I tried to speak, to ask what they wanted, but my mouth didn't open. Because it wasn't mine anymore. The third voice, my voice, spoke for me. She gave me the name. She gave me the face. Now she'll give me the rest. I dropped to my knees, shaking. Tears spilled from my eyes. I thought of calling someone, anyone. But how could I explain this? How do you tell someone you've been replaced by your own voice? That night, I recorded again. At 3:12 a.m., the file cut out. A full hour was gone from the middle of the recording. When it resumed, I heard myself say, "It's done." Only it wasn't me. Because I was asleep on the floor. I hadn't moved. But someone had. My phone's GPS log showed a ping, exactly 45 minutes away, in the direction I'd driven just days earlier. A town I didn't remember visiting. A motel I never checked into. And a photo I didn't take. It was in my camera roll. A blurry picture of me standing at the edge of a field. Only my eyes were all black. And I wasn't alone. Behind me, just out of focus, stood another version of me. Identical. Blank expression. Head tilted. And between us, a third figure, completely blurred out. Unreadable. But tall. And smiling. That was 3 nights ago. Tonight, I'm not sleeping. Not because I'm scared. Because I don't know if I'm still me. I've started talking in my sleep again. Except now, the voices don't stop when I wake up. They keep talking. And one of them is still mine. But it's not the third voice anymore. Now it's the first. I tried something I never thought I would. I went to a church. Not for prayer, though I almost tried that too. I needed to speak to someone who believed in things beyond science, beyond reason. I needed someone who wouldn't laugh in my face. The priest looked about 70. Pale. Kind. He listened to everything. Quietly, without interrupting. When I finished, he didn't tell me I was crazy. Instead, he asked, "Did you invite anything in?" That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "Sometimes, things speak from the other side. Not always malicious. Not always good. But when you hear voices that mimic your own, it's often because something answered a call." I didn't call anything. I told him. He looked me in the eyes. "You don't always have to speak to summon." He gave me a small pendant, an old metal charm on a frayed string. Said it was for protection, or maybe comfort. I didn't believe in it, but I wore it anyway. Anything was better than feeling completely helpless. That night, I didn't sleep at home. I didn't go to a motel either. I drove out into the countryside. Parked in an empty lot near an abandoned grain silo. Somewhere quiet. No mirrors. No walls. No voices. At least, that's what I thought. I set up a recorder, sat in the driver's seat, and waited. 2 a.m. Nothing. 2:30, silence. 3 o'clock. My radio turned on. Static. Then a voice. Mine. "I'm still here." I fumbled for the dial, but it wouldn't turn off. The voice grew louder. I never left. Another voice came in, softer, older. "She can't separate anymore. She gave too much." Then a third. The same one from the blurred photo. Deep. Playful. "She's trying to be one thing, when she is 3. My windshield cracked. A spider web of glass bloomed from the center without any impact, like it had been punched from inside. I drove. I didn't even care where. I just drove until the sun rose and the static faded. When I got home, I found my front door wide open. Every mirror in the apartment shattered. The walls were covered in writing, smeared in something dark, sticky, and dry. One voice. One face. One self. Over and over. Like a chant. I didn't call the police. I didn't clean. I just sat down on the floor and cried. I wasn't alone in my head anymore. I didn't know where I ended and the others began. Sometimes I'd look in the mirror and see them. One just behind me. One inside the reflection and one in my own eyes. I started talking to them. They answered, sometimes kindly, sometimes not. A week passed. I didn't go outside. I stopped answering texts. My phone would ring, always at 3:12 a.m., and show my own number calling me. I answered once. All it said was, "You're doing so well." That night, I dreamed of a room. White walls, no doors, no windows, just a chair, and me, and two others. One wore my face, smiling. The second wore no face at all, just smooth skin, like a mannequin. The third sat in the chair, head bowed. When I tried to move closer, the faceless one turned to me. "You were never supposed to wake up." Then I did. Only, it didn't feel like waking. My apartment looked the same, but when I opened my mouth, no sound came out. When I moved, the mirror didn't copy me. When I screamed, nothing happened. It was like being stuck in a loop. A shadow life. The only thing that changed was the pendant. It burned against my skin. And then I knew. I was still dreaming. But something else was using my body. Living in the waking world while I floated here, weightless, unseen. I don't know how long I stayed that way. Time moved weird. Days blurred into nights. The voices never stopped. They spoke of merging, of unification, of me being the gateway. I begged them to let me go. They laughed. Then something broke. A crack in the dream. A noise. My own voice. But real this time. Screaming. Begging. Let me back in. The dream world began to shatter like glass. I saw fragments of my life. My sister, the motel, the diner, the priest. I screamed, too. And then, I opened my eyes. On the bathroom floor. The pendant was gone. The mirror in front of me was whole again. But there were three reflections. Me. Me again, smiling. And the third, just behind us both, whispering something I couldn't yet hear. The three reflections stared back at me, each perfectly still. Mine looked broken, pale, hollow-eyed. My real self, I assumed. The second smiled with too many teeth. It wore my features like a costume, movements slightly off, like watching myself on a delay. The third didn't have eyes, just black voids where they should have been, and a mouth that moved without sound. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out. The reflection, my smiling twin, mimicked the motion perfectly, but didn't fall. It stayed standing. I shouted at them, begged them to leave me alone, but the only response was silence. My reflection didn't move its mouth. It was listening, but not responding. Then the third one spoke. Not in words. In thoughts. "You don't understand. We were never visitors. We were pieces." I blinked, shaking. Pieces of what? But I already knew. They were me. Split. Fragmented. Isolated. Something, some event, some trauma, some boundary I crossed, had cracked me open. And something else had crawled in. I didn't leave the apartment for days. I ate barely enough to stay conscious. Slept in short bursts. Always waking at 3:12 a.m., like something had pressed restart on my brain every night. Each time I awoke, something changed. One morning, my voice was lower. Another day, my handwriting looked wrong. One afternoon, I answered a video call from my sister, and she stared at me for a long time. "What happened to your eyes?" I ended the call without answering. Eventually, I stopped recording myself. Not because it stopped, because it didn't. The recordings only confirmed my worst fears. The voice, the third voice, was getting bolder. At first, it would speak in whispers. Then it started giving instructions. One night, it spoke for 5 minutes straight, saying the same phrase over and over. "The vessel must be whole." Later, I found a note written in my own handwriting. Only, I never wrote it. "You are the fourth now. The rest is waiting." I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it, like something was gathering behind my skin. The final incident happened 3 nights ago. I blacked out again. This time, mid-sentence while brushing my teeth. One blink, and suddenly I was outside, barefoot, standing in the middle of a nearby park. It was just past 3 a.m. In my hand was a tape recorder. I hit play. My voice said, "The fourth is complete." She remembers now. Then silence, until a new voice began to speak. Not mine, not anyone I'd heard before. It was layered, like multiple people speaking at once. Male, female, old, young, all speaking in eerie harmony. "Come home." That was all, and I knew what it meant. I don't live in that apartment anymore. I don't live anywhere. I walk. All night. From block to block, highway to highway. I don't stay in one place long enough for the walls to whisper. But it doesn't matter. They're not in the walls anymore. They're in me. Every mirror I pass, I see the third voice watching from the back. Every time I speak, I wonder if it's really me saying the words. I've lost time. Whole hours. Sometimes a day. And when I return, things are changed. I'm in new clothes. People recognize me. A man once handed me keys and said, "Hope the drive was okay." I'd never seen him before, but he knew me. Worse, I smiled at him without meaning to. I don't know how much longer I'll last. I'm writing this now while I'm still sure it's me, because I can feel it coming again, like a fog rolling in over my thoughts. If you're reading this, and you've heard voices in the night, if you've ever heard yourself speak when your mouth didn't move, if the mirrors have started to reflect things that don't quite match, don't wait. Don't ask questions. Just run. Because the third voice isn't trying to get inside. It's trying to let something else out. And once it does, there won't be a fourth voice. There'll only be one. And it won't be yours.